This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Another very important show. Some developments this week that we're going to talk about. Super important developments. Of course, we had the report of the Inspector General Michael Horowitz. Everybody had been predicting, at least on Fox News, both Hannity and the guests, that there was going to be major heads to roll. Of course, no heads rolled at all. Typical government Department of Justice cover-up. Nothing more, just letting the steam out of the kitchen, and that's about it. But what was interesting, and I take this to heart because, as you know, I conceived of and founded Judicial Watch in 1994 to watch judges, but the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court has been watching what's been going on with regard to the Steele dossier, with regard to Fusion GPS, with regard to illegal mass surveillance on the Trump campaign, his family, his colleagues, and of course, the mass surveillance on the American people. And that Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court was presented a false declaration or affidavit under oath, which was the trigger which started the Russian collusion witch hunt. Now, ask yourself the question. I always like to say, ask yourself the question why this court that was defrauded, these judges that sit on that court, Rosemary Collyer being the chief judge, takes an oath of office to make sure that the law is obeyed, why they sat on this for so long and did nothing. I had asked them many, many months ago, if not over a year ago, to start criminal contempt proceedings. That would be an evidentiary hearing. It would be a trial. It wouldn't be a conclusion. It would just more or less be like an indictment to then take evidence as to whether or not that court was lied to. Of course, this court, which sits over the intelligence agencies, the Director of National Intelligence, the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, with regard to warrants to wiretap people, to conduct mass surveillance, to basically run roughshod Orwellian style over the American people, they have a responsibility because they're a secret court. It's a court generally you can't get into. So therefore, the onus rests on the judges. So why haven't they taken action? So when this IG report comes out in the last week or so, what does that court do? Rather than starting contempt proceedings, rather than having a trial, an evidentiary hearing, so to speak, all they say is we want new guidelines from this department. Now, why is that? Ask yourself that question. Second question, what do the intelligence agencies have on these federal judges that they can blackmail them with? Or is it just a question of them being part of the Washington swamp, the Washington establishment, where everybody goes to parties in Georgetown, has lunch, goes to seminars, scratches each other's back, congratulates each other on how important they think they are? Well, Rosemary Collyer is not thought of as one of the sharper knives in the drawer over there at the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, or for that matter, the U.S. District Court. She happens to be a Republican, by the way, nominally, establishment Republican, rhino Republican. But why haven't the other judges as well in that court raised issues about what's going on, such as Judge Contreras, a good name, Contrary, appointed by Barack Obama and others on that court? Why haven't they been outraged, and why haven't they started proceedings to uncover what went on? Why do you have to wait for an Inspector General report, which is lukewarm, which really papers everything over in any event for the most part? Why don't they take control of their own court? Because they were the ones that were lied to under oath. And that tells you something. Because you see, we are at a situation right now, and I've said this before, where the federal judiciary, by and large, represents its own interests. It represents the interests of the establishment in Washington, D.C. and around the country. It represents the political interests of the party that had them appointed. And they lack the courage to do what needs to be done to protect the American people. And that is the segue into what I'm now going to talk about, and what we're going to talk about for a lot of the remainder of the show. We're going to have Joel Gilbert on in the third segment with regard to his fine book and video called The Trayvon Hoax, another outrage that the judiciary should be addressing and that prosecutors should be addressing and that the government should be addressing everywhere. We had to bring a lawsuit for George Zimmerman to get justice, and that's what separates the men from the boys, so to speak, or the women from the girls, so to speak, if you want to be neutral and politically correct, because we do the heavy lifting at Freedom Watch. The government doesn't do it. And what kind of a government do we have today, to use the term loosely? We don't really have a government. What we have is a tyranny. What we have are a bunch of people up on Capitol Hill, excuse the French, engaging in political masturbation. Yes, political masturbation. That's what they're doing. They never come to a climax. They never come to a conclusion. It's all to get on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. It's the scandal industry. We see that this week with the impeachment proceedings concerning President Trump, which we'll get into in just a little bit. Then you've got the executive branch, which is compromised and corrupted by a deep state that wants to take the president out. Obama, Clinton holdovers, Republicans who are dishonest as well, who want to preserve the status quo in Washington, and who do everything they can to keep the executive branch from doing its job and instead contribute to bringing down the president. Of course, we know that this impeachment proceeding began with wiretaps in effect of the president speaking to foreign leaders in the Ukraine and elsewhere. Wiretapping the president. This gets back to the issue with the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Then, of course, you have the judiciary. We've talked about that. Yes men. Yes men, just like King George III's yes men, that he had do his bidding to do a number on the colonies, to take away our guns, to take away our criminal justice system, to allow British troops to bust into our homes, rape our women, pillage, steal, and whatever. These judges rubber stamp what's going on. And that's what's happening right now in the federal judiciary. They're rubber stamping what goes on, whether you're from the left or whether you're from the right. But one thing's for sure, they're scared of their shadow because they don't get higher appointments if they push too hard, if they hold the powerful and the elite accountable. And you can see a lot of these elite running for president right now, sitting on the Democratic stage. You can see them, the people that Trump ran against, the Republican elite, same things. You know, we heard this week with regard to the impeachment proceedings that no one is above the law. We hear that over and over and over again. No one is above the law. Of course, that was a phrase which I used when I conceived and founded Judicial Watch, because no one is above the law. It's not even worthy of a trademark. Judicial Watch claims it has a trademark under fitting of that, but it's so generic that, frankly, that trademark should be canceled because everybody's using it in any event, and they're not enforcing it. But the expression is valid. But to hear these hacks on Capitol Hill say because no one is above the law more than anyone else, they think they're above the law. They think they're special. When you saw Pelosi, when you saw Nadler, when you saw Schiff, when you saw Elliot Engel, when you saw Maxine Waters just about a week ago announce the impeachment push, when you look at Pelosi right now, who is just venomous. I mean, she makes the Wicked Witch of the West look like Marilyn Monroe with her face, you know, with her puss up there on Capitol Hill. It's unbelievable. Same thing for Schiff, to be even-handed, feminine and masculine, to use the word masculine loosely when it comes to Schiff, the congressman from West Hollywood. But we have to be able to discern what's going on today with regard to our government. And then, of course, you have the fake news media on both sides. It's all fake news. Doesn't matter whether it's CNN, MSNBC, or Fox. Fox this week came out of its closet. Fox endorsed the impeachment push of so-called Judge Napolitano, a third-rate judge from New Jersey who doesn't know his rear end from the hole in the ground, who has been pushing to impeach Trump because he's mad that Trump never nominated him for the Supreme Court. Thank God he was not nominated for the Supreme Court. We have bad enough justices on the Supreme Court. We don't need Napolitano, a political hack. But now the Fox News, which is owned, managed, and run by Lachlan Murdoch, who's a liberal, a leftist, is now allowing Napolitano to take the lead at Fox and to do a number on Trump. Sure, they leave Hannity in place. They leave Laura Ingraham in place. They leave Tucker Carlson in place because they need to give something back to the right. But they're moving far left, and they're doing whatever they can to take this president out. And they want somebody else in there, obviously. I think Lachlan Murdoch obviously wants a Democrat in there, somebody like Elizabeth Warren or somebody to that effect. And, of course, my client, Laurie Loon, she was featured in the show a while back, the Showtime show, The Loudest Voice. And in that show, it accurately depicted how Roger Ailes, however evil he was, kept Lachlan Murdoch in check. He was constantly trying to move the station to the left, and Ailes prevented that. Now, that Fox has other problems, ethical problems. I've always said, even though I dislike CNN and I dislike MSNBC for their ideology, at least they're clear in what they present to the people. But Fox tries to play it both ways. And I always found Fox to be the most dishonest in terms of the way they deal with people of all the networks. You're going to hear from Joel Gilbert later. He was supposed to be on Fox last week to talk about the Trayvon hoax. He was canceled, probably by Lachlan Murdoch at the last minute after he spent his money to get to New York. Low-class operation. Now it is turned against the president himself. So what we have today, we don't have reality. We have a scandal industry. And that scandal industry now needs to be taken apart. And I'm writing my new book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. I'm going to be right back and talk about what Freedom Watch is doing, because no one else is doing it other than Freedom Watch and Larry Klayman. I'll be right back. In the meantime, go to our website, see what we are doing at freedomwatchusa.org, and support our cause and join our Justice League. I'll be right back.
Dangerous.
You don't hear, use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor.
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now let's talk about what Freedom Watch is doing, just like I used to do at Judicial Watch. You see, Freedom Watch today is what Judicial Watch used to be when I ran it. Hard-hitting cases, citizens' grand juries, not just Freedom of Information Act requests. Everybody wins Freedom of Information Act requests. You could send a monkey in front of a court in a Freedom of Information Act case and have the court order documents because it's required under the law. Sure, the government tries to play games, but eventually, if you're persistent, you get the documents. The question is, what do you do when you get the documents? You get the documents and use it as evidence in hard-hitting cases. You use it as evidence in citizens' grand juries. And you remember, just a few months ago, we indicted Mueller with documents and with the testimony of Dr. Jerome Corsi of how Mueller tried to suborn perjury, told Corsi that he would be indicted, that he would put away for the rest of his life. Corsi was already 72 or 73 if he didn't lie and implicate the president in Russian collusion and crimes. Well, we indicted Mueller, and look what happens after the new year. We're going to be trying Mueller. We're going to seek his conviction. We're going to seek his sentencing. And I hope the president now will wake up to what's going on and enforce those sentences, because he is, in fact, the head of the executive branch. He controls the U.S. Marshal Service. He can ask the Marshal Service to arrest this criminal and other criminals, and he can have them thrown in the slammer. They have rights of appeal. They'll get due process, something the president isn't getting today, but they're going to get it. And who will be next on our list? We're going to line them up figuratively in a lineup. Like, we're going to line up the Wicked Witch Pelosi. We're going to line up the Wicked Warlock Schiff. And we're going to line up Nadler, the overstuffed Nadler, Elliot Engel, Maxine Waters, Chuck Schumer. What a disgusting human being Chuck Schumer is. He just drips with dishonesty and venom. We're going to line them all up. They've subverted the Constitution. They won't even allow for a trial of the impeachment that was just voted on by political hacks in the Democrat Party on Capitol Hill. This is a subversion of the Constitution. It warrants indictment. It is an obstruction of justice, and we will seek it, and we will do it very, very quickly after the new year. Just watch what we do. And then the president's going to have to man up, and he's going to have to enforce these convictions once we have trials, which we will have. And the people, we have a right to enforce ourselves. We'll never do anything violently. It'll always be peacefully and legally. But these citizens' grand juries are also to educate the American people that we hold the justice system in our own hands. And just like has happened in the days leading up to July 4th, 1776, in my birthplace of Philadelphia, we're going to have to take matters into our own hands peacefully and legally. I don't advocate violence, even if I did, which I don't. It could never happen today because of the mass surveillance of the American people, and the vast power of government. If our founding fathers, if King George III had an NSA or a CIA or an FBI with this mass surveillance, they would have been picked up before they ever got to Philadelphia for the Continental Congress. They would have been arrested and they would have been executed before they got there. And that's the sword of Damocles that hangs over the American people today. And I feel frustrated because I believe in peaceful and legal means. I believe in the legal system. You see how critical I am? It's because I believe in it. But it's being run by whores, prostitutes, criminals. And we see that every single day. And the American people are getting wise. They're getting fed up. And I don't want to see an explosion, but we're very close to it. And if we don't use the legal means that we have, that were given to us by our Creator and our founders of our Constitution, of the people that signed the Declaration of Independence, our founding fathers, and those who went on to sign the Declaration, the Constitution, and put that into effect, if we cannot bring about the rule of law, because yes, no one is above the law, then this country is going to come apart at its seams even more and explode. And that is why you need to support our citizens' grand juries. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. Join our Justice League. Contribute to our cause. Please, we need tax-deductible contributions. We're small. We don't have even a fraction of what Judicial Watch now has. They have $110 million in net worth. We need the resources to do the heavy lifting. You don't need $110 million to get documents, believe me. You need $110 million to bring about justice. So I'm not saying that you have to give us all that, but please contribute to our cause. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. I'm going to be right back with Joel Gilbert, who wrote the book, The Trayvon Hoax, and a documentary of the same name, which unmasks a lot of the injustice that's going on. We're trying to unite the races, not divide them, and Joel is doing a great job in doing that. I'll be right back with Joel Gilbert, a great Hollywood filmmaker and producer and writer.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
Coming to you with honesty, sincerity, justice, and a great talent is Joel Gilbert, my friend, my colleague, someone who has uncovered what he has termed the Trayvon hoax. And I want Joel to remind everybody what that hoax is, why this is a blasphemy on the legal system, why justice needs to be brought about. It was just uncovered, and consequently, we were able to bring a lawsuit for George Zimmerman, and we're seeking justice in the courts. We're seeking justice against the Florida prosecutors that tried to lynch George Zimmerman for their own purposes, to deflect from race vigilantes that backed them up against a wall, and rather than doing the right thing, they were willing to sacrifice George Zimmerman at the stake. They were willing to indict him for second-degree murder. If they could have, they would have done first-degree murder, which would have been the electric chair with old Sparky in Florida, my native state. But they went for murder too, which would have been life imprisonment. And then, of course, there's the lawyer of the Crump family that participated in presenting a fraud to the court as alleged in the complaint that Zimmerman brought by presenting a false witness. And then, of course, there's the members of the family themselves, some of whom are running for political office, that participated in this fraud willingly. And then they stoked a race war and pitted the races against each other. One of the most despicable moments in American history, sanctioned by the President of the United States, Barack Obama, which pushed it along, and race vigilantes, hucksters, con men, fraudsters by the name of Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, just to name a few. So I want to turn it over to Joel and give us a recap of what you found when you did your investigative research that a child of 10 could have figured out as long as you could read and write, and what you came forward with and the difficulty that you're having right now in simply being heard, so we can not only get justice in the courts, but educate the American people that the races need to come together. We should stop fighting with each other and all work together because we're all one, and everybody deserves equal justice, whether you're black, white, green, yellow, or whatever. So, Joel, let her rip.
Hi, Larry. Thanks for having me back today. Yes, the Trayvon hoax, the subtitle, Unmasking the Witness Fraud That Divided America, because as you said, this case, the Zimmerman case, really is where things went south in terms of race relations. People recall that the Black Lives Matter group was formed because of this case. Now we realize on a fraud and a hoax, and that led to the Ferguson effect, the Ferguson, Missouri, Freddie Gray, all the racial division, and I would argue even the use of fake witnesses in the Kavanaugh case, a fake whistleblower with Trump. None of this would have happened were it not for this case and what the media got away with. The Trayvon hoax is two things. It's the substitution of a legitimate phone witness who was on the phone with Trayvon Martin, his girlfriend, in the days and minutes up to when he died, named Brittany Diamond Eugene, who was substituted out for a fake witness, Rachel Gentile, who pretended to be Diamond Eugene and told a made-to-order storyline of what she claimed happened that made Zimmerman out to be an aggressor and got him arrested. The Trayvon hoax is also the name I give to the hoax that the media plays on black Americans every day, promoting this false narrative from Jussie Smollett to hands up, don't shoot, that somehow there are armed white men in the streets and cops, so they're hunting people who don't have the skin tone that they prefer. And therefore, black Americans must seek shelter on the left to protect themselves from this hate in America. So my film debunks this entire narrative by, I just went into the state of Florida, got all the public documents, started with Trayvon Martin's 750-page cell phone extraction report, and right away realized that the girlfriend named Diamond Eugene, was texting photos back and forth with Trayvon Martin, and it was not Rachel Gentile. It was a different girl. And what I did is I said, if I can find this girl and find out what she really knew, why she was switched out for Rachel Gentile, and if I can meet her in person, I'm going to tell this story, and maybe it can heal America. Maybe Colin Kaepernick can go back and play for the 49ers again, because he, no pun intended, he got played. Everybody got played. And this film shows that America got divided by an epic race hoax that Al Sharpton was in on, Obama administration was in on, as well as these girls and the Martin family. And maybe we can all come together again and leave this ridiculous racial nonsense behind us.
Joel, tell us what happened when you tried to have a screening of your great documentary and your book in Coral Gables, Florida. And this is a problem that we have today in getting the word out. This is why this show is special. It's why I want you to share the show with everybody you know, your friends, fellow patriots, whatever, on Radio America. They give me a voice where I can say what I believe, what I think. We're carried on about 50 stations throughout the United States, but it's also podcast. You can find it at freedomwatchusa.org, larryclayman.com, on Radio America's own podcast website. But what happened when you tried to, in fact, have a screening of your film in Coral Gables, Florida? And, of course, I was going to have a press conference too announcing the case and our positive objectives here, why we want to bring the people together, not divide them. So tell us what happened.
Okay, good. Well, and by the way, I do suggest everyone get started by watching the movie trailer at the TrayvonHoax.com. You can actually screen the live stream the movie right there and get the book, ebook, DVD on Amazon as well. But, yeah, we had a film screening scheduled and a press conference, the exact same thing I did in Washington, D.C. in September at the National Press Club. Had a great turnout. Had a lot of kids from the Howard University, and D.C. press was there. Had a great event. Everybody loved the movie and the event. Just kind of rescheduled, very similar, nothing abnormal about it. Scheduled the Coral Gables Art Cinema. Signed a contract, paid in advance, no problem. Flew out to Florida. Had a press release sent out. I got responses from CNN, NBC, Fox News, Miami Herald. Had dozens of media attending, cameramen, producers, RSVP, ready to go. And less than 4 hours before the event, they call me and they say, from the venue, they say, "Oh, we've decided to cancel your event." I said, "Why? I can't believe you can't do that." They said, "Oh, we have the city council is here in our lobby, the city lawyer, the mayor is called." And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" They said, "Well, we don't like the name of your movie. We didn't know this was the name of the movie." And I said, "It's not relevant. You rented the space. There was no requirement for an approval of the content. You haven't even seen the movie." And they just went ahead and canceled it, and caused tremendous amount of financial and publicity damage to myself. And then the theater went about talking to the media and making up all kind of stories. First they said I didn't have a contract, then they said it wasn't a transaction, then they claimed that they were afraid of protesters. The story kept changing. But the bottom line is I think I'm going to probably sue that theater as well as the city for breach of contract and damages, and for trying to quash my First Amendment rights to be able to screen a film.
You just hit the nail on the head right there, is that people get scared, okay? They get scared of retaliation. They get scared of potential violence. They get scared of what they saw went on at Ferguson and Baltimore and things like that. And they don't let people speak. And if you keep running away from an issue, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. It's going to metastasize, which it is metastasizing. Wait till you see what happens in the 2020 presidential campaign, the way race is being used on all sides, guaranteed. Okay.
Well, I have no doubt they're gonna try to bring out Trayvon Martin's mother again. She's running for Miami-Dade commissioner, and she knew about this witness fraud. I've proven that. She didn't stop the trial, didn't say anything. And she's been endorsed by.
Here's the problem: is the majority now is running for the exits. Okay, most people, the majority being people that want to hear the truth because they just keep quiet. And tell us what happened as well with Fox News. I mean, here you think that they would want to have you on, that you were invited to go on. What's his name? I forget.
Jesse Waters. I'll tell you the story.
Yeah, I was thinking Jesse Jackson. Maybe he's the flip side of Jesse Jackson. He's
Yeah.
But you get canceled at the last minute. You spent your own money to get to New York. This is Fox News, okay? This is the new face of Fox News, which is promoting the impeachment of President Trump through Judge Napolitano officially on his website with articles, playing both sides of the street, dishonest, unethical, and you get to New York, and a few hours before you're supposed to go on with Jesse Waters, you get canceled out. Tell us about that.
Well, that's what happened. Look, I was on the Today Show of all things, NBC's Today Show. They interviewed me, and so I was all over the news. This was a stop news story. I was doing nonstop media, and Jesse Waters, producer, contacted me and asked me to be on the show. It was actually last Saturday. And I flew to New York anticipating a great event. The producer was very nice. She was always emailing me, asking me more good questions, asked for a copy of the film itself to show some clips, not just the trailer. So everything was just perfect. There was no problem. I was all over the media. It was very normal to go on the show. And sure enough, about 4 hours before the taping, I got an email on the day of the taping. It was going to be last Friday. And simply said, "Oh, we're busy. We have some breaking news. I'm so sorry." And I didn't really think that was the reason. I did call her, and she didn't really give me any more information. And sure enough, I just watched the show that I had on my DVR, and there was no breaking news. It was just Greg Jarrett and some of the same old characters. So I'm pretty sure that somehow from above they was more likely that they were told not to have me on, because there is media out there trying to discredit me. For example, I made 2 comedies that are hilarious.
Well, before we get to that, I want to interject here. Did I predict it or not? Did I tell you what was going to happen long in advance?
Did, and I have to admit that most of what you predict is going to happen usually goes that way, unfortunately.
I've been around the block a little bit here, and they're scared of their shadow. They're scared of their shadow, take a strong stand on anything. And this is it. I mean, they play the same people over and over again every night, same monologues, this and that, same guests. Here, Joel has something really important. You get canceled out. The owner of Fox News and the guy who manages it on the top is Lachlan Murdoch. He's a leftist. Suzanne Scott is scared of her shadow. She's happy she has a job after she covered up all the sexual harassment, including of my client, Laurie Loon, over there. As a woman, by the way, she was Ailes' enabler. And, it's just a cesspool over at Fox News. And, people are leaving. They're leaving on both sides. And the problem here, Joel, and I'll give it back to you, is that it's not just the left, it's the right, okay? It's, the so-called right, not the right such as yours truly and Joel Gilbert and others, but people who are afraid to stick their neck out. And if that had been the case in the days leading up to the Declaration of Independence, we would not have a nation today. And this is the problem that we have. There is no major cable network out there today. Sinclair is pretty clear what they do, but they're on, VHS. But no major cable news outlet today that is honest, that presents the news fully. They all have their agenda. It's advertising dollars, and they're scared of any blowback. But go ahead, finish what you're going to say.
Well, let me add to that is most of the conservative, so-called right-wing or conservative media told me openly. They openly said, Joel, this is incredible. We covered this extensively during the Zimmerman trial, but now we're afraid to be out there to be the ones to talk about this. We're afraid of the blowback on social media. We're afraid of being threatened with our jobs. If the media, so-called, covers it, meaning the MSM, will jump in. In other words, they'll follow the mob, but they were afraid. So that's called self-censorship, and that's what's been achieved by the left. Is even the conservative media is now too scared to cover issues. And just to show you how ridiculous it was, I was at the National Press Club in September, and I've got this.
We have about a minute left, Joel, so I want to make a point right before we're done. Take about 30 seconds on that.
Anyway, the story of the decade about this case that was a hoax that divided the country, and that day they were reporting only that someone wrote a book that Brett Kavanaugh did something inappropriate at a party 30 years ago, but the girl doesn't remember it. So that was the main story when this was coming out. And I was going to point out that they've tried to discredit me by claiming that 2 comedies I made are real about, Elvis and Paul McCartney. They're hilarious comedies called mockumentaries. They try to say things like, I appeared.
This is what they do, Joel. We're running out of time. We're going to bring you back again. But you see, you just got to keep pushing. This is like an exorcism, okay? In some ways, we got to get the truth out. And once the truth gets out, the truth will win. But thank you for what you do. Go to Joel's website that he mentioned. Read the book, and you'll see for yourself that what he's saying is the truth. Thank you, Joel.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow patriots, people that believe in the vision and creation of our founding fathers. We're in a holiday period. It's the Christmas period. We should be thankful. God really is watching over us, but he's asking us to take action. Those who help themselves with the grace of God are doing the will of this country and will help it be preserved. Now, this week, an interesting thing occurred. Mark Meadows, who I've had contact with in the past, Congressman Mark Meadows from North Carolina, which is kind of dear to my heart. I went to Duke University there, even if it's gone left. But he's leaving Congress. Now, why is he leaving Congress? I don't know. I called him. I thanked him for what he did. I said, if there's ways we can work together in the future, that would be great. He sent me a very nice text saying, thank you, Larry, for your kind words. But why is he leaving Congress? He's leaving Congress because he knows that all it is political masturbation. He didn't say that. That's me. I don't want to tar him with my French, so to speak. But this is what we're dealing with now. And we're dealing with it in every branch of government. We're dealing it within the media. You just heard Fox News runs away from stories. They ran away from Cliven Bundy. They ran away from Sheriff Joe Arpaio. They ran away from Judge Roy Moore. They run away from Laura Loomer. They run away from Jerry Corsi. They run away from everything, okay? They just want to do their little shtick every night, on Hannity, on Laura Ingraham, on Tucker Carlson, same story over and over again, 3 stories, but they keep repeating them over and over again. And this is how people go through their catharsis. They get their popcorn, they get their hummus and chips, they get their beer, they get their Diet Coke, they get their wine, they sit there, and they think something's going to happen and makes them feel better. But you know what? We're not here for psychology, okay? We're here to get a result. And that's why after the new year, I want you to join us with Freedom Watch's citizens' grand juries, because we're going to be lining them all up. We're going to be indicting them, seeking their indictment. We're going to be trying them. We're going to be legally and peacefully frying them. And we're going to seek to legally and peacefully enforce those verdicts, those judgments, those convictions. And we, the American people, need to use the tools that we have. As I've said over and over again, please go to our website, freedomwatchusa.org. Read how Justice Scalia, may his soul rest in peace, in a case, United States versus Williams, ruled in the majority opinion that the grand jury does not belong to the government. It belongs to the people of the United States. And we are the government. We, the people, are the government. But they don't think that in Washington anymore. They think they're the government. They think they get to do whatever they want, ram it down our throats, and we have to accept it. Well, we don't accept it anymore. We don't want to be told what to do. We don't want people making their own decisions. You answer to us. You're employed by us. So since you won't do it, we will do it. And the way that citizens' grand juries work is that we have the legal right under the law of God, the law of man, the Constitution, to enforce the law ourselves. Law is not just what's on the books in terms of statutes or common law. The law comes to us through the 10 Commandments, comes to us through the Talmud. By the way, happy Hanukkah to people out there. It's going to be starting this weekend. And these are the kinds of things that we need to remember, that we hold our own fate in our hands. So I want you to go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause, tax-deductible contributions, sign up for our Justice League, get our newsletter, renew your faith in the American people. Forget about the hacks in Washington, D.C. and around the country and state capitals. Forget about the garbage. Don't watch any of the debates for that matter. I mean, we know what they have to say, whether Democrat or Republican. We know what they have to say. Now it's time for us to act and get up off the couch. Forget about Fox News. It's dishonest. It's a dishonest, unethical organization. Do it for yourself. And please send this radio show to everybody you know, because we need to educate. That's what gave rise to coalescing the colonies in the days leading up to 1776, education. You're going to hear more about that from me and Larry Klayman, not just in this radio show and other things I'm doing, and new books I'm writing, and columns I write every week for WorldNetDaily.com, and also for myself on our website. So I want to wish you all a happy holiday season. Yes, Merry Christmas. Yes, Happy Hanukkah. And we'll be back next week with our New Year's show. Until that time, I want to bless you. Well, God should bless you, not Larry Klayman, but I do too. I endorse it. Your family. God bless America, and God save America.